More hand. Revealer. All right. I'll bring up Dana Shooten. There, Shooten. There you go. Kato AC and Alex, you out there still? There you go. Well, there you go. Oh my God, you're behind me. Here, you guys get here on the camera, and I got another mic here somewhere.
Hello.
All right, so where to start? There's so much with this film. You know what's weird question to me? Because I grew up in the 80s. To ask someone, did you have to do research? Like, did you have to research what the 80s was like for you two? Sorry.
Yes, and no. One of the things was like being a stripper in the 2000s is very, very different from how stripping was in the 80s in terms of heels, what was worn, what was legal, all of that stuff. So there was an element of research that had to go into understanding what was legally allowed under blue laws in Illinois. We call them blue laws. So there was a bit of research regarding that. I know you did a ton.
Yeah, I mean, I did a deep dive into the Satanic Panic and the Tammy phase of the world, and just kind of like the culture that the scare that was going on, and it. Some of it was news to me, and some of it wasn't. I mean, I was born in '91, so I.
I wasn't going for like to find out how old everyone is, but I just assume.
I'll tell you, it's fine.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, and it was actually really fun researching it. I mean, it was a wild time, and I mean get comfortable. What do you? One of the things that we say is like this is if the Satanic Panic were real, if it came to life.
So when Luke was directing you guys in this world, because it's like an alternate, almost like an alternate, like multiverse type thing. Yes. Were there any different rules that we may not have noticed that you guys had to follow, like in this world, or was it just pretty much what '87 was like, aside from the whole apocalypse?
That's a really good question that I don't know that I have the answer to, except music was a big one in terms of. I'll just hold this. Sorry, Shayna. Music was a big one, and I want to turn it over to Alex to talk a little bit more about that. But one of the things that and Luke has spoken to this, and I thought it was really important to bring up here, was that with regards to the score, we wanted it to feel like the 80s without it being like, it's Guns N' Roses. How about that, you guys? Remember when we heard that? So the music is iconic and thank you, is iconic and kind of captures the era without being a direct pull. So I kind of want to hand it over to Alex to talk further about that. Sorry to throw you under the bus on that.
So Alex is local, by the way, and he does a shitload of movies.
It's on? Yeah. Hey, so I don't know what to say. Like thank you. So I'm 51, so I lived that shit. I didn't have to do any research. Luke was really clear on wanting to be evocative of a little bit earlier in the 80s, just because it had the late 80s into the 90s. Things were, that was kind of grunge, and things were starting to change. So we definitely wanted a little bit more of the kind of neon, synth wavy kind of stuff early in the film, but I really wanted there to be a differentiation once they went underground, and there's more organic instruments and there's more acoustic instruments once they go underground, and it's more sort of visceral and it's less synthetic. The Revealers is, it's more performative and stuff, so we went for more pastiche kind of, era appropriate pastiche, but I really wanted to do things a little like weirder and darker when we got underground. So I hope that came across. I don't know. That's all I got.
So speaking of music, the dance choreography, Kato actually did it herself, and one thing I said is like, I saw that scene and I was like, I know this character. So when you and Luke were putting this together, and what's amazing to me is like, you're in this small little room, but all of a sudden it felt like you were on like a Broadway stage. And a part of it's editing, but it's just how big the dance is. It's so beautiful. Anyway, talk to me about the choreography and the music choice, and just how you and Luke kind of decided to introduce the character with that dance.
Yeah, when I first got cast, you know, it was one of those things that we knew we would be operating in a peep show booth, and pole at that time, like in clubs, was not as prevalent. So we didn't want to do pole in an 8x8 booth. Shocking. And I just said to Luke, you know, I've been doing burlesque for 11 years now, and I said one of the things I do is like circus burlesque, and I do chair balancing, and I sent him a video of an act, and he was like, can we use something like this in the film? And I said, sure. And so we started collaborating and putting our heads together in terms of songs and things like that. And I was going more that like kind of grunge route. I was like getting into Nine Inch Nails, which was '89, was their first album. So I was like, it's not quite there, but we're like getting into that world. I was like, I want something kind of like this because Angie has that edge to her. But he was like, have you ever heard of Gunship? So Gunship is the track that we actually got to use. We called them in the UK and they were like, yeah, please take our song for money. But no, we got to actually use the song. That was the song that both Luke and I landed on, and we were really excited about it. And I really love it also because the song itself is a tribute to Lost Boys, the film. So the lyrics itself are very much in line with that. All the sax, yes, absolutely. So I just went in and spent the first like week when we were in quarantine before we even got to set, just running through that song over and over and over again. I borrowed a chair from set, and I just started working through what kind of choreography I wanted to use. And my very first day on set was just me, Luke, and our DP Rob working through all of this. So it was not only like a great opportunity for me to kind of flex a skill that I otherwise probably wouldn't have gotten to put on camera, but they created this environment that was incredibly safe and collaborative for me. When we went to shoot that, we shot it, I think, all the way through 7 times. So by the end of it, I was like, are we done? Do we have to do anything else? But it was phenomenal. To get to see the edit the way it turned out was just it's just kind of magical to me.
I just had a thought of, like Kato mentioned, because we shot this in August of 2020. We did quarantine in a hotel for 7 days ahead of shooting, and Kato was working on this incredible choreography with a chair in her hotel room, and I was locked in mine reading a Bible, and like that and like that is really fucking funny to me. That juxtaposition.
So let's talk about what was your character's name? I'm sorry.
Sally.
Sally, that's right. I'm horrible with names.
Sal's.
And then character names. Ugh. So with Sally, that coming out is a hard thing. To come out during the apocalypse in front of the person that you've probably been in love with, like, can you talk about that scene? And was there multiple ways at first where you like looking at it, and then how you just ended up deciding to go with the way you did, like?
Yeah. So one of the reasons that I was drawn to the script is because of Sally's journey, and I think that there's just so much heart in it and so much earnest and honesty in when you are backed into a corner, in Sally's case literally, you have no choice but to be yourself. And I think that that's like one of the most beautiful parts of this film is like these two people are cornered and have nowhere else to go, and so they just let it all hang. And they see each other for who they like really are, and they accept each other. They don't judge each other. And so that was something that like really pulled me to this character, and just like having this burden her whole life, and then finally letting it out to the one person that, spoiler, yeah, she is in love with Angie, at least in my eyes. Backstory, we went to high school together, Angie and Sally. But yeah, and so like, and Luke really created that space. Like that was a really challenging scene to film because it's very emotional. And it's just two people in a closet, and Luke created that space and like made that such a safe, free play space on set that like it was easy. And with Kato is just like the most magnificent scene partner in the world to just bounce off of, and the way that she listens and loves in a scene is like, I was like, great, we got this. we can go there.
Your character, I think, was the first person to like come out of the closet inside of the closet.
Literally,
I love
yeah.
that. I love
And
that.
then Angie leads her out of the closet. Which I think I realized for the first time today. I was like, Kato, you took me out of the closet.
So one thing that a big theme that really like touched me is not to get into the whole religious part, but the faith, and it's all about faith, and in two different ways. One is finding your man, and then in the other, trying to understand how to still believe in what you've been taught. You know. Can you guys talk about like your character arcs in terms of faith, and like did this like performance actually kind of open your eyes a little bit about faith, and not religion, faith, like, and how you feel about just the world in general? Sorry, it's a really deep question. You can pass on it.
No, I don't. I don't want to pass on it. That is a really good question, because I mean, I think I can't really talk about Angie without talking about her identity as a sex worker. And I think even now in 2022, sex workers are it's so stigmatized, even as there are protests and attempts at unionizing that are happening. And I think that her faith comes from the fact that she, at the end of the day, she does know that what she's doing is right, because she is essentially raising like a surrogate son, and she is doing everything and will always do everything in her power to be there for him. And I think she has that flip moment realization where she says, you know, I think he never had anybody. I think he's probably got abandonment issues, and really she's speaking about herself and the faith that she's had to imbue in herself as a sex worker and as someone who's essentially become a single parent and who has been constantly ridiculed for being publicly out as a sex worker. I think she has to have faith in herself, and she has to have conviction in what she believes in, and she has to be there because when we say in acting school, that she has something that she can put her shoulder behind and keep pushing. So that's I don't know if that's really an answer, but that's kind of what has things. Yeah, thank you.
What? Well, what's coming to mind right now is COVID and our world that we're still navigating through. I just started rehearsals for a play in Chicago, and one of the lines that has been sitting with me on it, like still, like 3 days later after reading through it, is this mom is like, she died, and she's telling her son, coming back as a ghost, look after each other, look after each other. And I'm just like, I could get I am an emotional person, so I might cry, but like, that's just sitting with me right now of like, look after each other. And like, that is like watching this film tonight, and like, I think that it's giving me faith of like, as long as we just keep looking after each other, no matter how different you are, we're gonna get through. And like, and I hope that we can keep looking back at this and look after each other.
Awesome. Great answers. See, y'all, first off, you didn't expect to come to a movie about a peep show apocalypse and like for the movie to touch you, and then you definitely didn't think the Q&A you were gonna have this like nice moment.
My bad.
I'll probably right there with you, by the way. So, anyway, something lighter. Let's see. Oh, here's something. Working with you. Was there anything that you guys had to fight for? Not, this is no accusation on Luke, but
Who is precious?
yes,
Luke
yes.
is
So,
the best director.
but is there anything that you felt was like being directed by a male saying like, I know my character should do this, and what did you bring to that table?
The tender moments. Like when Angie pulls Sally through the wall, like that was Kato and I being like, we think that this needs to be here, that like pull moment, and like just those like tender like oh Gay moment number 1, gay moment number 2. That's my answer. I think.
Hello. I think that rather than fighting for it, Luke was so collaborative. Luke immediately would come to us, and Michael and Tim, the writers, were also so collaborative, insofar as like they would say like, we don't know what this means. We don't know what it means to be femme presenting people. We don't know what it means to be queer. We don't know what it means to be sex worker adjacent. We don't know what any of this means. We want you to contribute. So I just want to like jump in and say that they were so supportive with that. There were definitely some moments, especially like with Angie's speeches about liking what she does, because I think that some people think, oh, you're a stripper, you must have been forced into this. And she's like, no, I like what I do. I like my job. This is how I like my job just like you like going to the office, I guess. But I think that was something that we were able to, not really fight on, but like collaborate with, and making sure that people know that she is a willing participant in this.
Yeah, like I told you that with the dance, what I loved about it is she did that for herself. When she was dancing, she's not whoever's behind them. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
It was all her. So anyway, I get selfish during Q&A sometimes and forget to open up to you guys. Does anyone have a question that we have? I have plenty more, but I want to hear others. If you're in the back in the dark, just holla. Right here, we have right here. Right here first, and then next back there.
Oh, for Alex?
Oh, for the.
No, it's okay.
No.
She's asking about the trumpet sound.
So the trumpet was not me. That was sound design, and I think it was probably pitched down. It sounds to me like it was a brass section, sort of pitched down, and then. But I didn't do it. That was kind of. They already had a placeholder version of that. A lot of the film is sound design, and a lot of what I have to do is sort of navigate around sound design. I have a bad habit of, if there's not sound design already, or temporary sound design, when I get the film, because these two things happen concurrently typically, so I'm not hearing what they're doing, they're not hearing what I'm doing. But we had a temp kind of version of this that I was able to navigate around, and kind of, they even told me the key that it was in so that I could kind of have the music sort of dovetail right into it and stuff. So it sounds really good. And this tonight was the first time that I've heard this mixed in surround, because I give them initially a stereo mix, and then I give them stems where I separate out all of the different instruments, and then they mix it in, for theaters, which blew my mind because I was really impressed with it. That's my first time hearing it, so. And it was great.
Yay!
That guy right here, he did it. So yes, there we go, Brad. We got a question back here. I can get out of the way. Right here.
Yeah.
First of all, I thought the movie was incredible. Second, there were just a lot of really fun and amazing lines, and y'all delivered them all so well. But do you have, for each of your characters, do you have one that really stood out as your favorite line from your character?
Yeah, it's about favorite line that they delivered.
I'm a big fan of Coos Brews. Dudley Do Right, Dusty Todd, Coos Brews. That was one of my favorite scenes to film.
I think most of my favorite lines are Angie's. I do like saying, and she's my friend.
So badass. We also had a question here.
So, I suppose the end could be taken a couple different ways. Ultimately, though, you have the lesbian and the sex worker stuck in hell. So, what was the discussion like around that ending and landing there and continuing it?
And let's add the decision not to have found your man.
Right. I will say I saw this at a private screening before we saw it at Panic Fest, which was the first time that Shayna had seen it, and I did not know that zoom out was the ending. That was not what I had seen in an original iteration of it. So it was like, we take hands and we walk and blackout. And I was like, great, okay, end of play. And then I saw this, and it was that zoom out and this idea of that line that Sally has of being swallowed up in demon-filled caverns, and that it's everybody. So I don't know the answer to that.
So, did you know you weren't? There's no version where you're gonna find your nephew.
I don't know. I don't know what that is. I think that, going back to that faith question, I think she is still firmly in the camp that she will find him. But I don't know what that means for her. Revealer 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Y'all are a comic book now too.
We are a comic book.
Pretty awesome. Right here.
It's Shayna's mom.
That's Shayna's mom. Oh.
Hi, Mom.
Oh.
Love you.
The phallic monsters. And are you afraid of talking to mics after having the phallic?
That was part prosthetics and part SFX. So we had some on set that were attached to like fishing wire that were like being pulled by somebody up and around and off, and then they made it look really cool later. And then at one point we had like remote control snakes on the ground, which because they were hilarious. It was so absurd. It was so phallic and so ridiculous. Yeah. And like when it's in her mouth and I'm pulling, I cracked. We had to do multiple. I was dying. It was so funny because it was slippery, and it's this intense moment. I was like, I was like just biting it, and I can't get a grip. And I was like, this isn't working.
It was gross in more than one way.
Yeah. The magic of movies. Love you.
I love that your mom asked that question.
Well, she's like definitely afraid of snakes, so she was like,
Oh, okay. It's the snake part. We had another right here. Okay.
Yeah, I had a question about the sheriff earlier. He said, so during that scene, I was like, man, it must be just really tiresome to do the whole same dance over and over again all day. But then you actually, that's what you did on set, was the same dance over and over again. And then that scene was like a montage of all of those performances.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's correct. So we did the cool thing about the booth and the set itself is all of that was one location, and all of those walls would move. So we could just interchange things. So the booth itself, the glass could come away and the DP could step in to the space. We could take out a wall and he could be closer. We can get those over the shoulder shots, which was really cool because how are you going to make an 8x8 box interesting? So yeah, we did end up doing about 7 run-throughs of this 5.5-minute track of the full choreography just to get those different angles. And it was one of those things where we watched playback on it and Rob was like, I'm making a music video. And I was like, you really are, and I am very here for it.
Me? Yes. Shane, I didn't know you were a martial artist. In that scene with the axe, I want to know, I want to know, were there blooper moments during that? And can I get a cop?
yes and yes. Fun fact, that was my favorite thing we shot. Luke and Rob came up to me and they were like, how good are you at jump spins? And I was like, watch. We did it in one take. So there are no bloopers on that, but like just tons of like fucking around and like just being silly. There's tons of BTS that hopefully will be released to the world someday.
Last question right here.
Well, it's sort of a spin-off from the 8x8 room. How many different actual caverns or tunnels did you all shoot and different scenes in?
Yeah, so COVID. Our set was in one space. It was this old shut down office building that the front, like the retail side, was base camp, and the back warehouse was our soundstage. And we had 2 booths that we shot all of the booth stuff. That broke down, and then they built the tunnels right in the same spot. And there were 3 tunnels.
Moving walls.
With and
Sex.
some Scooby-Doo moments of running, but yeah, very very minimal, one location.
All right. I have thousands more questions, but we have an after party, and we all need to go start drinking. So thank you all for coming, and let's give one more hand for Revealer. But don't get up yet. A few announcements.